I have thought it would be really fun to put together a day where we actually go out and door knock an entire neighborhood. We haven't done this since 2018, and it was like the summer of 2018, and it turned out so like it was so much fun. I think at the end of the 2-day blitz that we did, every single person had dozens of leads, if not something under contract. So that would be really cool if we wanted to, if you wanted to put in the chat or something, if that's something that you'd be interested in, if you're like, yes, I would love to go hit the doors. And basically what happens is I go out for like an hour with each one of you, right? We just kind of split up. And then once I've gone with you, you can go with someone. And then we just kind of team up like that. So it could be, it could be trying. I'm not saying that door knock. People think the door knocking is not very fun. But I'm here to tell you, yes, okay, good. I love that. It's so much fun. Like I actually miss it. I wish I had more time to do door knocking. Unfortunately, I look at every time in the mornings lately, I've been going for a walk and I'm like, gosh, I really miss just saying hi to weird people and wonderful people, but also definitely good. Yay. I'm so glad. Yes, I would love to have that day where we just take a minute and really a blitz, right? So the reason why door knocking worked, just some theory and some strategy behind doing some door knocking out of state. So big companies like pest control companies, alarm companies, solar companies, not so much. They actually pivoted in a different direction. I'll talk a little bit about how that and like the psychology of selling behind that. So a little bit about me. We'll jump into a little bit about the backstory on door knocking for Maeli. So I actually was running a couple wellness centers when I was, I guess, 24 years old. And I was owning, I owned them, but I was running them and it was running me, right? We all understand that scenario of being a business owner. And I was slaving. Oh my gosh, I was working so many crazy hours and I had 2 kids. But I was making a good income, but nevertheless, it was stressful and it was a lot of work. And I was trying to open up multiple different wellness centers across the Wasatch Front. And I guess we had one in Mesquite and one in Las Vegas. But anyway, so I was doing that. And then my ex-husband comes to me one day and goes, hey, so I helped you build your business, which he did. He literally physically built my first building that we did my wellness center out of. And he goes, and I've kind of put off my dreams. Relevant, you have. Yes, thank you for your sacrifice, right? And believing in me. He said, so can I go do something that I really want to be passionate about? And I thought, okay, you're actually going to be passionate about something. Sorry, I should say, but right. And so he's like, yeah. Like I found, I have this opportunity to learn sales, and it's through this company called Vivint, and I'm going to go learn how to do door-to-door sales. And I thought, what? You're a grown man that has children and a family, but isn't that for like return missionaries or like teenagers? I just honestly had no idea. And so he goes, well, let me see the map. Blah, blah. So they came over, they showed me the comp plan, they showed me what you make per sale and blah, blah, blah. I thought, you can't go wrong. And this is it. This is why I'm telling the story is you honestly cannot go wrong, whether you are going on a mission or you're going on any type of scenario where you're forced to go peace mission or military, right? If you're forced to go outside of your comfort zone and be somewhere for longer than 6 months, it can be uncomfortable, and it forces you to grow and it forces you to learn whatever the heck you're supposed to be learning. And I love that submersion, right? That full submersion. And in this case, it's teaching you how to be a salesman or a saleswoman, right? And I thought, oh gosh, well, you can't go wrong learning how to be a better salesman, because in life, we're always selling something. I don't care. People would always be like, oh, well, as I'm recruiting or as people are on my team, they'd always be like, oh, I'm a terrible salesman. I wouldn't be really good at that. And I thought, why would you say that? That's not necessarily the case at all. Like, why did you tell yourself that? Curious. Like, oh yeah, no, I don't like selling anything. I'm really bad at it. I'm like, wow, you've sold yourself really hard though, being a terrible salesman. So you will maybe be the greatest salesman of all. And I would always kind of get mad. It always get mad. And that's because we do sell ourselves our own stories, right? We sell ourselves our limiting beliefs, we sell ourselves what we can and cannot do, and whatever that is true, right? We understand that. So whether we think we can or we think we can't, it's right. And so back with that philosophy, I was like, you know what? Go you, right? Go take off for the summer. I've got home front, get to it. Go learn something really cool and see what comes of it. Well, he took off for about 3 weeks, and I didn't realize exactly what he had signed in the contract in which he signed, but this particular setup, how it was done, he sold 1 alarm in 3 weeks. Now, by then, he was supposed to have already sold maybe like 20 alarms or something. And so he was freaking out because if he didn't hit a certain quota by the end of the summer, then he had to pay back $30,000 to Vivint, because supposedly that's what they had invested in him, in lodging, in trainings, in blah, 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 blah. That's a pretty big kick in the tushy, right? If I told you and held you hostage and said, hey, go put a couple homes under contract by this date, or you owe me $30,000, you'd probably get to it as well, right? I mean, that's a pretty bold move, and their legal team was phenomenal. So yeah, you weren't going to get around that. And so he was losing it, right? He was just freaking out. And so I was like, well, I mean, you'll figure it out, like, every night, like cheering him on, right? And he couldn't, honestly. He's like, no, you have to come save me. Please come help me. Please come help me. And I was like, well, I don't save you. I don't know anything about door knocking. And he was, yeah, but you're a really good salesman. I'm like, so are you. Like, everyone can be. You just go talk to people. Open your mouth, right? And so he's like, no, just like, if you help, then your numbers would help my numbers, and we could collab, and it would be the same. It'd be the same housing. It'd be the same blah blah. I'm like, fine, I'll come out and see what I can do to help you. So I left the kids here, and then I flew out for 1 week to see if I could help him. And I ended up, fortunately, the first day sold 2. The third day I sold 3, and then it was 3 from there on out for a hot minute. And for that week, and he was obviously very mad. But this is what it came down to, was that it was just being able to read people, which some of that you can teach people. That isn't something that everything in sales you can learn. Seriously, you might struggle at certain things when it comes to door knocking or phone sales or just confrontation in any kind, right? And if you're going to be an investor, you definitely need to learn to become a lethal weapon when it comes to how you position yourself, the information that you're withholding. So sales sometimes isn't actually speaking at all. Sometimes sales is just simply listening to what other people are telling you, and then learning when to let that information that you want to go, right? And that is the key with sales, right? It's holding stuff that's hostage. If you lay your whole hand, if you were playing cards, if you let everybody know your cards up front, then the game is over. Like, nobody's playing, nobody's winning, nobody's doing anything. And so that is sales, right? It's this back and forth, like, what do you have? What do I have, right? And it's this dance. And I know that Jim Rohn actually says this all the time in his books. He's probably him. And so if you don't read Jim Rohn or haven't had a chance to go back and listen to some of his talks, he was like one of the greats. And he always talks about how there is a dance with sales. And if you're a salesman and you're actually being sold something, oh, you love it. Oh, you will buy, and you'll buy all day long, because you appreciate a good sell. You appreciate a good sales pitch. And if it's a good one, you'll never feel bad that you did it. You never feel like remorse that you did it. You feel grateful because you have that warm feeling inside, rather than like, ew, I just got scammed, right? You never want that feeling. And so it is our job to make sure that people feel comfortable. They feel that you are respectful, right? All of those things. We're going to talk about some of those kind of rules as we're door knocking, and some things that you can actually get away with that you might not think. But so I actually ended up flying back home, and kind of was like, I don't know what you want me to do, but ended up actually having my assistant. She took over my company, businesses, and I was like, I have to go do this. Like, my husband, he needs me, and I got to go out there. So I packed up the kids, I packed up my mom, because she had to come with me to watch the kids for the summer, and we all flew out. Actually, we drove out, and to Michigan is where we started. Actually, no, it was in Indiana was my first spot that I ever did door knocking, and it was fun. We, had a great summer. I worked from literally 8 a.m. in the morning to 12 p.m. to 1 a.m. at night every single day for an entire 4 months. Well, I guess by the time I got there, it was 3 months. So I'd worked for 3 months, and this is the story. This is why I wanted to share this. After the 3 months were over, I was the #1 rookie of the year, blah, blah, blah. It was great. But I learned two things that summer. One, that it was so wonderful to not have an overhead. I don't know if you're a business owner now, or maybe you've been thinking about becoming a business owner and like opening up like a shop or something like that instead of just traditional real estate investing. And, running an actual business is no joke, right? There's a lot of overhead, there's a lot of moving parts, and you are the forefront with all of it. And you feel like usually just running around with your head cut off. And there was something so simple and so like simplistic about door knocking that there was another company that obviously fulfilled this. And all I had to do was say, hey, you want this? Yes. Okay, cool. Sign here, basically, right? And I'd be like, great, they'll be here in an hour. And then they'd come in and take care of it. And I'd walk away and I'd make my, $700 then or whatever it was per deal. And but it was so simple, right? It wasn't overcomplicated. I had nobody that worked for me at that time. I didn't have anybody telling me. I mean, I had rules, right, that were very strict on what I can say and what I can, that kind of stuff. What I can promise people, what you can't promise people. But other than that, like I could just randomly talk and have fun with people. And that was really like, it was relaxing to me because I could just go walk and create my own schedule. I could enjoy the outdoors and not be stuck in an office all day long. And I could meet and greet people. And I love, honestly, people. I mean, they're hilarious, right? I mean, I have some crazy stories knocking doors. And if we're a door knocker, and how I have ever been, I'm sure you also have some crazy stories. Maybe we'll have some time towards the end to talk about some really interesting stories that we've been through door knocking. But like, just doing an entire transaction with a lady that's topless, weird things like that. I mean, just like, what are we doing here? But she was blind. This is why this happened, by the way. Anyway, so that first summer taught me that being able to simplify my business was actually really important. And it allowed me to feel a lot less stress, and I could just focus on one thing. And that was it. One thing all day long, every day. That's all I did was one task. And on the last, Zoom that we just did last week, we talked about, time management, and we did talk about The One Thing, right? That's a really good book if you haven't read it. And The One Thing is so powerful because we get so overwhelmed with so much of the stuff that's going on in our lives that we forget that if we could just zero in and put all of our focus into one thing, we would be a lethal weapon. We would be so talented. And if we sharpen that saw every single day towards just that one goal, it would be incredible, right? We would accomplish so many things and acquire whatever that one thing is indefinitely. Of course we would, right? If we could put all of our energy into it. And so I encourage you to think through that as we're going through this. And you can take the strategy that we're going to be talking about today towards, using it on phone call sales. Absolutely, you can. You can use these strategies to put it towards your kids, whatever the, one thing that you're looking for right now to implement in your life. You can really use these strategies to go, no, I can do that. If I just put 100% of my effort into something, for sure it's going to happen. That's an obvious, right? I mean, that doesn't take a lot of understanding to recognize that we put a lot of eggs in a basket to go, oh, I got to do this and this and this and this. So if we did do a blitz, it would be very powerful. And you could do this as often as you want, honestly, right? If you said, you know what, I'm going to put away my phone, no social media, no any of it for an entire day, just even one day. Let's call it 8 hours, not even 12 hours, call it 8 hours. And you decided to go take a neighborhood and just go knock doors, and you couldn't stop. You had to knock every single door. There wasn't an option. You told yourself that was the only option. And I could not stop until I knocked every single door in those 8 hours. And that means if the 8 hours isn't up, you just keep going. Wherever that neighborhood takes you, it will take you. You would be surprised how many leads you would get in that one day. It would be incredible. And you would be so thrilled with the work that you put in. You would be so thrilled with all the follow-up that you have to do and all the relationships that you created for them to actually serve you also in your business. And this does happen. Humans do like to serve people. I mean, we do. We love to serve, and we love to feel like we're doing something good for someone. And so how you position yourself on the doors really is, important. So we're going to kind of break all of that down. But back to the little story real quick, and then we'll be done there. So I went the end of that summer, thought, oh my gosh, this was the second thing I took away. I made more money in that one summer than I had the entire time I owned those wellness centers. So I made like $350,000 take home, right? No overhead, didn't pay for anybody's expenses for any reason, for any whatever, right? Took home $350,000 that year, and it was in 3 months. I was pretty jammed, right? Like I was like, what? This is awesome. Where has this been my whole life? And I really thought, holy smokes, this is going to be my jam for the rest of my life, because I resonated with it. I got better and better, and that is true. Towards the end of the summer, like right now, I'm going to be super rusty. So we're going to go through some stuff, but I'm going to be extremely rusty. I'm going to be the first person to tell you that I have not sharpened my saw, right? I haven't been knocking doors all winter. Today would be probably the first day that I would have even wanted to, and it was even still raining and cloudy and gross outside. So nevertheless, by the end of the summer, right, you are so good, like so good. And I recognize that if I just kept doing that, right, summer after summer, I would just get better and better. And these big guys, that were doing sales, they were making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was just for the summer. Wow, I could be home with my kids all school years to do homework and cooking and just all the things that I wanted to do that I never had time to do. And so that's what I did. I ended up actually selling all my companies, my wellness centers, and I went to my business partner and I was like, hey, Doc, well, I'm out. He honestly couldn't believe it, because I was so submerged in the wellness industry. Like, I mean, I was Mrs. Wellness. Like that was my brand. And I was like, peace, I'm out. He got it. I mean, right. And so I did. And then we opened up 3 more territories. I became a branch manager, blah, blah, blah. And then they took the top 10 door knockers and had us open up Vivint Solar. And Vivint Solar was a big deal because it was like uncharted territory. And so just to kind of give you a little bit of understanding of where I came from to actually create what I'm about to show you. So this is why I'm telling you the story. So I took what I learned from the door knocking for alarms and what we were supposed to do together, the top 10, right? We were supposed to create the same type of scenario for solar. What I mean by that is if you're selling an alarm, this is how it goes down. Knock, knock, knock. Hello, Mr. Homeowner. Great news. You didn't know this, but you're about to get an alarm in about 1 hour. That's what happens. So you're knocking on the door, and within 1 hour, that alarm system is being installed in their house. That's crazy, right? Like, and the science behind that and like the psychology is that if you leave that doorstep and the technician's not showing up within about an hour, it's like 80% chance they're going to cancel. And it's because the emotion's not there anymore. Their emotional peak's not there. There's all sorts of things that aren't happening any longer. And they're like, actually, I'm out. Like I never mind. I don't need something like that. Right. And they were so excited. And yet somehow the moment you walked away, they're like, this is not exactly what I was wanting anymore, but whatever, they create some story. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, they figured it out that it is installed within 1 hour from you walking away from that house. And sometimes you just don't walk away at all. You're just like, you're hanging out at the house until the technician shows up so that you know that it's happening. And they pop the hole in the wall and guess what? Going in. Like, what the holes in the wall? Well, so that's kind of how that went down. So they asked us to do the same thing in the solar industry. When we showed up into California, the fastest solar installation was actually, I want to say, was between 3 and 4 months. That was the fastest installation that had ever happened in like solar. And that was like super rare. I mean, most of them were like 6 months. Hawaii was like 9 months to 14 months of, once you knocked on the door, it was like 14 months later that they would get it. Like those are crazy numbers. And that's really hard for a salesperson to wait 9 to 14 months later to get paid. That's a long turnaround time. In our industry, it is similar to this, and that's why it's relevant. So we had to go from the quest, right, that they asked us to do was say, hey, create a strategy, create a scenario, create a program so that you knocked on the door and then within 3 weeks, they're getting solar panels on their house. And we thought, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? But we did it. We absolutely did it. And they probably still doing it. I have no idea. It's been, 7 years now that I've been out of the game. But that's crazy to think that, we could take something that used to be 6 months to 3 weeks. And it's just a process, it's a system, and it's recognizing how to communicate to people and how to get people to do what you want them to do. End of story, right? It has to be win-win. So that's what we have to do here with real estate. I took what I learned from the alarm world, and I took what I learned from the solar world, and hey, that's funny, that's the company. And I kind of went, wait a second here, if I'm going to become and do real estate investing, then I need to figure out how to, one, create an atmosphere that I want to be in. But then two, I need to be able to create my own calendar, my schedule. And that was what was nice about solar, is that it was all year long, right? It's more like what we do now. It's not something where you are, you fly out to a neighborhood and then you're gone within 2 weeks, and you're into another neighborhood and you're kind of bouncing around. Solar this is my neighborhood and I'm never leaving this neighborhood, essentially, right? I pick a neighborhood and I comb the neighborhood and I work the neighborhood for years. That is the strategy for solar. And that is going to be your strategy for door knocking for real estate as well. So we're going to talk a little about that. And so understanding kind of the direction that would take you, because once you decide that this is a neighborhood that you want to focus in, then you should take it very seriously. Like, this is really important, that this is your neighborhood and that you are the first person that gets called if any of this stuff goes down. And let's go through those. All right, now we're going to open it up for conversation a little bit here. If there's things that you've been like, oh my gosh, I've been dying to learn this or this, when it comes, maybe you've already been knocking doors and you're like, I can't get around this, or this is the objection that I'm coming up. I would like to talk about how to structure a neighborhood, how to map out a neighborhood, how to keep notes. I mean, there's a whole science behind it for sure, and it works. So definitely don't reinvent the wheel. There's really no need for it. It works every single time. And if you can just follow the numbers, right, it'll work. It will work for you. So let's open it up for just a minute, see if there's any questions that maybe I can write down so we make sure we get to. Anybody have anything? You put it in the chat. Let's see here.
I think for houses, a little bit different than selling things is, running the numbers, and lots of people will sell, but they'll sell too high. They're not willing to sell low enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get a deal, financing it.
Yes. No, definitely raising the money, right? Getting that kind of a thing. Luckily though, so if you go into this and you say, actually, I'm going to look at it more of an objective scenario, where it's like, well, if the numbers don't work for me, guess what? In this market, we're competing heavily. Everyone on this call is competing heavily with DIYers. Really, really hard. We're competing with them. And that's why there's no deals, right? This would be a fantastic market to still do fix and flips in. And it is this fantastic market if the numbers made sense. And like you said, if somebody's willing to actually accept the offer that you need, most of the time, because we're not doing the work, right? We're not, hammering, we're not doing any of the work. And so our numbers are way higher than a normal, fix and flipper would be if they're doing all the work, if they're moving into the home. And that is the case. Like, I just sold a house. Well, actually last Friday I sold a house, and originally she wanted me, right? Same thing. It was a door knocking scenario where, essentially, I guess, she was a distressed homeowner, and she's like, I need help, right? And so I went in there, I ran all the numbers, I did what I was supposed to do, and I have some tips on how to run the numbers quickly when you go inside the house. And she was like, she goes, oh my gosh, I really need 300,000, right? I need 300,000 because she's moving to Arizona and this needs to happen, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. And I don't know if I can give you that. I mean, I have no idea. Honestly, I got to run my numbers. I got to do some, and I got to figure it out. You're going to need a new roof. You need, all this stuff. Let me figure out the ARVs. So I leave I call her back and I'm like, hey, so these are the numbers. This is what the situation is. The most that I could offer you is 265. And that was true. That was the most that I could possibly offer her, because the ARV was like maybe 410, and that was pushing it, to be honest. And I'm like, by the time, right, by the time I fixed everything that's wrong with it, and it smelled horrendous. There was cat poop everywhere, right? And by the time ran all the, I'm like, we would be negative $20,000. We're not in the positive, right? It's like, oh, I understand, like really sad and didn't know what to do. And I was like, well, but great news, like I have 10,000 buyers, right? I have 10,000 buyers I can blast this out to, and we can get this sold within, a 2-week period. She goes, really? I'm like, absolutely, I got you, right? Sure enough, I listed it. So it's easier for me as an agent, truthfully, to list it as like a wholesale than it is to just do a traditional wholesale. I found doesn't mean that worked for you. And if you're an agent and you're like, no, I still love doing wholesaling, cool. I'm all about that. I want to help you support that, and I want to show you how to do it. But I feel like I make more money doing it, that transaction, that way, and it's way less risky on me, because I don't have to worry about like how many I'm doing every month or a year, and I don't have to worry about any of the garbage that goes with it. I can legit just make a flat commission, and I made like $8,000 on this property. Okay, well, I maybe would have made $10,000 if I would have wholesaled it, and I'm now on the radar for them to come down and crack the whip and find me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm good, right? I don't need that. So, but now I just turned around and listed it or wholesaled it, whichever one if you're not an agent, just wholesale it. And then now you make $10,000 to $8,000, and you're not stressing so much that your numbers don't work, right? Because we had 5 offers, we had like 25 people fighting for it. They didn't make an offer, but 5 people were fighting for it. It rose it all the way up to 328 was the final sale price. And she walked away with way more money than she would have, right? I mean, yeah, she paid both agent sides, but that's why I listed it at 310. I didn't list it at 300,000, and then it still got racked up because it was a frenzy, and there were all people moving into the property wanting to DIY it. And I had conversations with every single one of them, like, well, how would I do this? And what do you think about this? And I'm like, yeah, totally do it. That sounds great. Open up this wall. It'd be amazing, right? But they can, because they're moving into this crap hole, right? They're not actually doing the fix and flip, or paying for somebody else to do it. And so that is our competition right now, because these people actually can't afford, they would never do this if they could afford it, but they can't. There's nothing in the market here in Utah, at least, really, that is affordable for a single family home that's under 300,000. I have a brand new cute couple that are brand new buyers, and I'm like super excited to help them. And and they're actually, wait, thank you for the referral, by the way. I think we're closing next week, so it'll be super exciting. Yeah, I know. This cute couple never thought that they could buy a house, and sure enough, they're closing next week. But they can't buy a house, so I was really excited to help them. But they're so cute. The only thing that they could buy, right, $330,000, the only thing that it buys here in Utah, in the areas in which they could live, was a condo. Like, that's it. There's not one house on the market that was less than that. Not one single house. Like, what? So that was kind of frustrating, but they were super happy about a condo, because like, great, something I own, right? Not in the basement of some, their grandparents or mother's house. That's great. And they have a baby, so it's wonderful. Well, I can tell you though that that's hard. If you're like, well, but I want a house, then you're going to need to move into something that is nasty. Like, that's your option if you want to move into something that's in an affordable range. So that's hard. So that's what our competition is right now. It's super heavy. And that's why, is because we're actually competing with all of these cute single family homeowners that are wanting to buy a house, that are just, maybe just got married, or they're about to get married, or maybe they're, bursting out of their house, so they need to buy a new home, but there's nothing for them to move into. There's nothing on the market, right? There's no homes on the market, and they're just all really expensive. Even though the prices have dropped, they're super expensive for most people who could qualify for a home like that. So with that being said, yes, Charlotte, you are 100% correct. It is definitely a lot more dancing on the doors when it comes to door knocking for real estate. But if you do it in a way that means you're not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere. So I'm here today, and I'll be back here next week. and I'll be back here the next week after that. Like, I'm here, like, this is my territory. This is my hood, right? This is the area that I take care of and that I manage, and that I want to be the person that says, oh yeah, you got to reach out to Maeli. Oh, if you're selling a house, oh no, maybe you want to cash over. You should probably just talk to Maeli, right? You want to be that person where if you're going to do the door knocking thing, right, and really make it something that pays you well, that's what you need. You need to have a presence. And there's a couple strategies with that. So the first day you go door knock, let's break some. Any other questions though before we go on to like how you plan out your week? Because a week would be fantastic to do like a full week of door knocking. Any questions before we, because that was a really good one, Charlotte. You're right. Any others? No, okay. So if you're going to plan out an entire week, I would say let's break down week by week. And maybe you only say I have 2 hours. Okay, maybe you have only 2 hours every single day for a week. Okay, let's try it with that. So you go out the first day. Let's call it Monday. Now, Mondays I call recon day. Anytime I show up to a new territory, new neighborhood, new anything, it's recon day. Okay. So you're going to show up to the neighborhood, you're going to park somewhere that you know how to get back to, because that's right. And then it's not weird too. I always try to find like a school or like a church or something that neighbors aren't like, who's the car? Why is this car? Fine, right? Okay, well, not park in front of your house, chill out. Or do if you want to spark a conversation, then that will definitely spark one. They will come after you because you parked in front of their house. So find somewhere, to park and then go for a walk. Just immediately get out of the car. Don't think about it. Don't sue about your papers. Don't look at your stuff, right? Don't analyze what you're reading. Don't like, oh, okay, this is what I gotta do. And no. You will paralyze yourself and you will get stuck in your car, and then you won't actually get out of the car and you won't go door knocking. So that's why having a buddy is helpful. If you're that person that's like, I know myself, I won't go do it. I'll pretend like I'm gonna go do it. And then I get to the neighborhood and I get all excited and I get jazzed out. And then I get there and then I'm like I could do this. The trash has to be taken out of my house. I got to clean the garage. If you're that person and you know it, right? All of us do it, right? We make up excuses of other things to do than to actually work. And we do that all the time, whether it comes to just making phone calls that we don't want to make. Talked about a little bit about that last week. We're really good at creating other things to do than making money. I don't know why we do it, but we all of us, including myself, we make excuses on why we need to do something that's really actually not important. So get out of the car. First things first, just get out of the car and take a deep breath. And we always used to have to do like a power stance. So it's like this, or something crazy just to kind of create some energy, because Zig Ziglar does say it best, which is a sell is just simply a transfer of enthusiasm, right? And that is what a sell is. Half the time, I feel like most people don't even know what the heck I'm selling, right? Whether I'm selling a house or selling whatever, I'm just so darn excited about it that people are like, well, she's really excited. I should probably be listening to whatever she's talking about. That's it, right? I feel like that's the ticket, right? Is be excited. I know that there's a lot of sales strategies that's like match their energy. If they are talking slow, then you talk slow. And there is a time for that. But we live in a really fast-paced market. I mean, our TikTok and Instagram, everything's like, you're right, jump cuts every 10 seconds. Like if you don't have a jump cut every 10 seconds, you're not being seen on any of your social media platforms. And that's because our attention span is horrible, right? So you have to be something different on the doors. You have to create something that's unique, or they're just going to like slam the door every time. Okay. So first thing first, jump out of the car, get excited, do whatever you got to do. And then create a time block that you're going to do whatever you're about to go do for X amount of time, rain or shine. Make that a thing, right? I don't care how many no's I get. I don't care how many yeses I get. I don't care how many people tell me to call me back or to stop back tomorrow or stop back by tonight, whatever it might be. I'm going to knock actual doors for 2 hours straight, nonstop. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to go, oh, nobody's home or blah, 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 right? Cut it out. You're just going to go knock doors. And the first day, it's really important. Try not to sell anything. Try not to your day is to just understand the neighborhood. If you get a referral, great. If you get somebody that says, actually, I'd love to sell my house. Cool. Those are all great things. But the recon day is really important. So a couple things I would suggest. If you're going to pick a neighborhood for door knocking, I personally try and pick a neighborhood that has one, maybe two NODs in it. Notice of defaults. Now, we all get the list, right? And if you're not familiar with the NOD list, talk to me, DM me, right, later. But you can get them from your title company, you can get them from public accounting records, you can get them all over the place. So you get the list. Sometimes they're really old, sometimes they're not, you don't really know. And that's what's frustrating when people are like, oh, just go leave a sticky note on their door, right? Okay. When you get there, you'll see 25 other sticky notes that say the same exact thing. They're like, oh, okay, well, I don't know if that's going to work. You can hand out postcards. You can drop off, gifts. That works, actually. We can talk about that, but that works more for not NODs. That works way better for, I knocked them all. So, if you have questions like, oh, what's your favorite to knock? Well, I definitely have my favorites. But for like probate, that's a big one for me, is like dropping off a gift and then knocking on the door for that reason. So find a reason to show up to that neighborhood. Don't just show up to a neighborhood randomly. I mean, you can just for practice, by all means. You can knock any neighborhood and get deals. I promise. Would be surprised how many deals I picked up in a neighborhood that had no NODs in it. But it is helpful, right? Because if you're on a mission, right? You have purpose, you have a reason that you're there, and you can make this whole story about why you're in this neighborhood. So it's a notice of default. You know that you want to go talk to these people, and you've driven by the house, you walk by the house, you know exactly what it looks like. I do something called a call of I guess something in my throat. 1 second. Okay, so I do something that's called a cauliflower effect. So if the NOD's here, let's call this little house baby right here, and then you have a house here, and you have a house here, and usually a house here, right? Just right across the street from each other. So do not knock the NOD. This is my strategy. There's plenty of strategies out there, and I'm sure most of them work, honestly. All it works, nothing doesn't. I just knocked a lot of doors, and so this was what stuck for me. So you go find out your strategy, and I'd love to hear your feedback, and I'd love to hear what you do and what works for you. But this seemed to work really well, and it's called the backdoor approach or the indirect approach, right? So instead of being like, oh, Mr. Homeowner, and there's plenty of guys and gals that, well, I don't know a ton of gals that do this, but definitely a lot of guys that do this. They just pound on the door, right, and wait till they find the answer, and they're like, I know you're in default. You're $100,000 in debt or $20,000 behind. Your house is going to be taken foreclosed on. I want to talk to you about how I can save that. And they're just like bulldoze in there, right? And make sure that they understand what you're there for, fine, and that you're there to help them. But then now it's like, ugh, right? That feeling of them like, it's another one of those guys. They're coming after me. Another bill collector, right? And that's what they think. If you're door knocking and they're not answering and you know they're home, guess what? That's why they think you're just another bill collector, and they're not wrong in a way, right? I mean, so you got to get creative when it comes to stopping by these homes. So this is my strategy, and we've mixed it up multiple times, and we can share multiple different strategies, but this is my favorite one. So you do a cauliflower effect. So you knock the houses across the street from the NOD, like that whole row, maybe 4 or 5 if you have time, and then come back to the across the street, knock the homes leading up to it, to that house. A couple things that happens when you do that. If they're home, then they're seeing you knock other doors. People are really nosy in neighborhoods. If you didn't know that, they're very nosy. And if they're behind, and significantly behind in their house payment, then they're home probably. They don't have a job, right? And so they're home and they're watching. They're nosy neighbors, right? Those are the people. And so they're watching what's going on. Their dogs are barking. So they're like, oh, what's going on? And they're watching you bebop around, talking to neighbors, laughing, right? Whatever. And the whole time you're just playing recon. You're trying to figure out everything you need to know about this neighborhood. That is your job that first day. You're just trying to understand, what do I need to know to get to talk to that person that's on the NOD list, right? What information can I capture? By the time I get to this notice of default, they're going to feel like I've lived in this neighborhood forever, that this is my jam, and that I'm so excited to buy a home in this neighborhood that I'm willing to knock doors. I'm willing to knock doors to find a house that I want in this neighborhood, because that's how excited I am to have a home in this neighborhood. So that's what they think, right? So I'm knocking doors. By the time I get to them, they're actually like, yeah, I've been seeing you knock doors. Like, what are you doing? Like, they actually are like, they want to come out of the house to talk to me because I'm a nuisance in the neighborhood, right? Like that. Why are you here? And why are you bebopping around, right? Like, what are you doing? Like, they actually want to know what I'm doing. Therefore, it's a win for me. They want to come out of the house. The other thing that will happen is maybe they're not home, and maybe they're not home. And every time you've swung by the house, right, you've just wasted gas money. Because that's actually, I felt like when I first joined the industry and I was being told, I'd watch my classes and then I was being told like, oh, okay, go knock doors, right? Go knock doors, or go put the sticky notes or whatever and go say hi to these people. It's like, I'll got that. I'll do that all day long. So I went out, I drove out to a neighborhood, and then there's one, usually in one neighborhood, right? And so I drove all the way there to have them not be home, and thought, well, this is not going to work. Now, is it? Like, that's such a waste of everyone's time. So that's when I was like, oh, okay, obviously I gotta actually get out and knock doors like I normally would. And then magic started happening, because if you go all the way to a neighborhood and take the time to put a postcard up or whatever and drop off a postcard and then not get anything, you just really wasted so much time. And that's stressful, and it gets annoying, and it draws out how long it's going to take for this process for you to get your first deal. So let's stop doing that. And actually go learn. Let's get some recon, because neighbors are really good about giving information out to people. So if you find a renter, oh, they're worth gold. Okay. So the first day, find a renter. That is your jam on the street. Find a renter, and they will tell you everything and anything about this neighborhood. It's great. And I don't know why that's the case, other than maybe they just don't care about their neighborhood. It's not their home. So like, sure, I'll tell you whatever you want. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And you can ask questions like, hey, so I'm trying to get a hold of these people. I'm trying to make them an offer on their house. Do you know when they get home? Like, I've been dying to call them, and you know their names. They're like Jeff and Lynn or whatever you want to call them, right? They're supposed to be home, but I just can't keep missing them every time I show up to their house. Oh, I'm like, do you know what color of car they drive? Oh yeah, a red truck. Oh, perfect. Notes, right? What time do they usually get home? Just I keep missing them, right? Oh yeah, they don't get home usually till like 6 or 7, work, whatever. I was like, oh, okay. Actually, they're going through divorce, so you might only see one car at a time. Like, they'll spill the beans for you, right? I mean, it's fantastic. And so like, oh, divorce, okay, perfect. Now we got even better ammo, right? And then so now you have to come back after 6 or 7, and what kind of car they drive. And if it's parked outside, good. If it's not, and they know that they park outside, they don't park in their driveway. That's helpful, because if you show up to the house and you still don't see any car and it's 7 o'clock at night, you probably would think, oh, they parked in the driveway or in the garage. But knowing that it's on the driveway, right, that changes everything. Oh yeah, no, they park in the garage. Okay, now you know at least to go knock on the door, and that you still have a chance to find somebody home. Right, though that's a great place to start when it comes to figuring out whether this is going to work for you, right? Like, start there as a chance to learn and to recon. The other thing that I find in the neighborhood is I'll say, hey, and then if you're reconning and you're just talking to neighbors, I tell exactly what I'm doing to a lot of people. Maybe not the people that are right across the street, just so that it doesn't circle back around. They're like, oh, don't answer the door to that blonde chick because she's just trying to buy her, whatever, right? So if I'm down the road, I'll say, hey, I am a local real estate investor, my team and I. So leverage our team, right? You're a part of our team. And that's one of the reasons why we created a team, was so that you could leverage us and that we could leverage all of us, right? We were way stronger together. And so it's not just you on the doors, it's your team. So my team and I have done over 200 fix and flips. Right? You could use that if you want to. You need to create some type of edification that makes people feel like they can trust you. Okay. So you can say something like that, or you can say, hey, my team and I are actually going to be purchasing or acquiring 2 homes in this neighborhood by the end of this month. And I was just wondering, have you ever thought about selling your home? Let them talk. Just open up and let them talk. See what happens. People will say, and that's not threatening, right? That's a very oh, interesting. Cool. Good for you as an investor. Like, that's awesome. And you'll get this. You'll get, oh, I'm never moving until I die. Cool. Awesome. So how long have you lived here? Oh, I've lived here 35 years. Wow. That's a long time. So you've seen this neighborhood change like drastically. I'm sure of it. What do you say the percentage of the neighborhood is? Is it mostly, older people? Is it mostly young adults that are like brand new families, young families? Like, what's the, demographic, you think? Just intel. That's all you're doing the entire day of Monday, right? Is just trying to figure out who these people are, what's the neighborhood like, so that when you show up to somebody that's actually willing to sell their house, you know everything. Why could they sell to anyone else but you? You're the expert. Nobody could sell the house better than you in that neighborhood. No one, right? Because you know everything about the neighborhood. Anywhere from, it used to be farmland and it used to have peaches, and the original farm owner was Ben Johnson and his family, and then they parceled it out, and then once they parceled it all out, they sold off the land, and whatever it might be. That's fantastic intel to make people feel like, oh, you belong here, like, or, oh, you're already here, you're submerged into my neighborhood, obviously I can trust you. Like, you know more about their neighborhood than they do. Right? And you've probably seen it. If somebody's knocked on your door, you've heard them say, and it's like, oh, now it's like cliche almost, right? When it's like, oh, I've been talking to the Johnsons and the Andersons. Do you know Jeremy and Elisa across the street? Oh yeah, I know them really well. Cool. So yeah, I was just talking with them. That's a strategy. It's called a redirect, right? Or it's a strategy that's a break you preoccupation, what they call it. And basically why you have to break their preoccupation is because people are busy. Okay. People are super busy. Think about when you're knocking, and don't think about this too hard because then you won't knock on people's doors. So kind of, this is where sales actually come in. You have to realize, and you have to be so convicted. I was talking to another one of our teammates earlier today, and she goes, I don't know how you, she's like, how do you do this? I'm like, you have to be so convicted in what you're doing that you have to know that it's the best thing for them. And that if they don't talk to you, you're doing them a disservice, not the other way around, right? And so, yes, you're going to bug as many people as you possibly can because you're trying to help these people. You're going to try and interrupt everybody's family dinner you possibly can, even though it's really annoying, because you believe and you know that if you don't, some other scam artist is probably going to pick up that property, and or your family's not getting, not getting the vacation they want, or your family's not going to get fed this week because you're not doing and making the money that you're supposed to be making. So having something that is like your conviction of, I'm doing this because, and this is why, right? That solves most of those problems. Because when you're on the doors and you get told, that's my property, right? Freaking out. Then unfortunately it makes you, right? I don't want to do this anymore. And you cry and you go back to your car, and and then you'll be done. That won't help anyone, unfortunately, right? The only way that you can put it, like show it to those people that were super mean, is come back tomorrow and do it again at the same door. You'd be surprised though, actually, that is a strategy. The people who are super mean, you can kick rocks and you can be mad about it and be like, oh my gosh, they must have had a really bad day, right? I always made up a story of somebody was super mad or like mean on the doors and like freaked out at me. I'd always be like, man, I'm so sorry that your dad died. And people would be like, why do you say that? I didn't say to them, right? I'm just saying it to me in my head, or like to my person I'm trading. I always would say out loud, oh man, I'm so sad that their dad just died. And that's why they're treating me like that. Because the truth is, I can't tell you how many times actually something similar like that did happen, where maybe my notes, I didn't take good enough notes. Usually I'm really good about, a-hole, you're never going back to this house, and like write down their numbers or whatever, like their house number. But if you don't take really good notes, your chances are going to re-knock that door if you're knocking that, that neighborhood. So you're going to re-knock that door the next day. Guess what? It was like 95% of the time, totally different person that came out, and they were sweet and they were nice. And it's like, I wonder what actually happened. You don't know. And the moral of the story is, you don't know what is going on behind the doors when you knock on their door. So moms could be, bathing their children, trying to make dinner, on the phone with, insurance, whatever the case might be. Dad might be just getting home. The kids are so excited to see him, and everyone rushes, and everyone's chaos at night, right? It is. Look at any family, right? Your family, my family. Every night it's always chaos. Running around to sports, everyone's everywhere. What time's dinner? Who knows? Right? So because of that, you're literally interrupting their world, and you have to recognize that you are a nuisance. Great, be a nuisance, and you have to be okay with being a nuisance. I feel very confident that I can be a nuisance for people, right? It's fine. I'll be a nuisance all day long because I'm going to get what I want. And that's the level of commitment that you have to have. Get what you want. End of story. You will get what you want if you just push through it and recognize that there are people behind the scenes that are just sometimes just total dicks. And, you know, there's just nothing you can do about it. Like, they're just a-holes. And then some people are like, oh, hey, do you want a water? And don't be afraid to ask for stuff like that. So I would always take a water bottle and I would just hide it in like one of the bushes or something as I was walking, just so I'm not carrying a water bottle or something like that. But if you're, depending on how long you're out, if you're only out for a couple hours, you can carry it with you or put it in a fanny pack or whatever you might be. But I would say, you know, stay hydrated. It gets hot here, right? Or anywhere, honestly, for the most part. During summer, it gets hot. So stay hydrated. And if maybe use it as an excuse. I did this plenty of times. Hey, knock, 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 right? It's like, hey, I'm actually out here, you know, talking to the neighbors. My company, you know, my team and I, we're actually going to be purchasing 2 homes in this neighborhood. And, you know, I don't know if that's something you've ever thought about selling. And if they're like, oh, they're like, then you can tell they're just not into it and they're not like nice. They go, okay, no big deal. So unfortunately, I've been out here for like an hour and a half and it's been great, but my car's actually all the way here and I'm done. But is there any way I could use the restroom? Right? Maybe it is a house, and maybe it's the house that you know is an NOD. Maybe it is. Maybe that's a strategy of yours. I've definitely used it for sure. If it's a house that I know that I need to get into, oh, I've used that for sure. I used it and it works. People are like, oh, they're hesitant. Wait, don't say, oh, never mind. No, 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 no. Right? You're a boss. You don't, the first person to speak loses. So you just wait for them to say yes. And it's really awkward. But you know, that's what you got to do. And then you'll go in and you don't actually use the restroom because, right, most of the time it's what. Or maybe you really actually do have to go pee because I've been there plenty. And I'm like, I'm a woman, you know, you guys can just go around back and get a wall, whatever, fine. But we can't. So I'd go, if it's a nice house, I'd purposely knock on a nice house too and be like, hey, so I actually need to use the restroom. Help, right? And they'd let me in and it would be a big deal. So, and the strategy behind that is on the porch, you're a pest, in the house, you're a guest. Memorize that, write that down. Very helpful. It's made me hundreds of thousands of dollars, just that embed inside my mind, which is whether it's on the phone, whether it's, you know, if I'm trying to close a deal over the phone, I'm getting inside their house. That is my only close. It's not to close the deal. That's not the first close. Who says it? What's the Brian Tracy, I think, is the sales guy that talks about always be closing, right? It's a funny like acronym that he does, but it's true. Every point of a sale is happening the entire time. So the moment you knock on their door, the first thing that you're closing them to is what? Getting inside. That's it. You're not asking them to sign paperwork yet. You're not asking them to sign their life over. You're not asking them to do anything else. You're just trying to get inside their house. And it does make a big difference to get inside of somebody's house. Once you're inside of a home, I mean, now the theatrics can come in, right? And I do have a full walkthrough type of, you know, strategy that helps people so that they feel like, oh, like she knows what she's talking about. We're going to continue down this rabbit hole. Let's see if there was something that Amazon delivered. Yes, Eat That Frog. Yes, Michael. Good for you. I love that book. Eat That Frog. That's a really good book. I know you're going to love that. And that's it, right? What?
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be so good. I'm excited for the follow-up call that we're going to have. So make sure when you're done with it, reach out to me. I'd love to chat about it.
There's another good book if you're going to do something like this. It's called Go for No.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
That applies so much to this.
So well, right?
Except I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and there's no way I'm letting people in my house, or that I would want my daughter to go into anybody else's house if I don't know them.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, and this is, you know, maybe I'm crazy, but people would always be like, Maeli, you knock doors alone. And most of the time, NODs aren't necessarily in the nicest neighborhoods. Like most of the time they're not, right? They're in the hood. And people would be like, oh, you knock doors and for alarms. I mean, I was in the hood. I knocked in like the scariest, the scariest areas you could possibly imagine, because those are the neighborhoods that need alarms. And so like Lansing, Michigan, there's like a gunshot that goes off like every hour on the hour, and it's like recorded at the city, like this, the police station. Like it's so sketch. Or Gary, Indiana. I knocked in Gary, Indiana, and there's literally one house per 10 homes that are burnt down. And then there's another house that's standing, and then another 10 homes that are burnt down. And then really there's just hoarders in, most of the homes. So my strategy behind not being afraid of people, because it can paralyze you there too. Like, oh, I would never let my daughter, or I'd never let, like my husband, like Mitch goes, I'm not letting you knock doors by yourself. And I go, I've been doing it way longer than I've known you. So you don't have a choice. I get to go knock doors. That's why having a buddy maybe is better, right? If you are worried about like, oh my gosh, like something sketchy could happen. But in 6 years of door knocking that I did, I could honestly say I probably had one incident where I was like, that was kind of sketch. I'm glad I got out of that one. And I think the reason behind it is just your intention. If you're looking like you're, somebody's like an easy target, you're going to be an easy target. But I mean business. Like I'm showing up on a doorstep and I'm handling business. I would be very shocked if somebody was like, oh, she looks like a really easy target. Like, no, that's not what they'd be thinking. They'd be like, Jesus, what do I got to say to get rid of this lady? Probably is what they're thinking. Right? Like that. Actually, I don't want her. No, obviously, hopefully not the case, but kind of, right? Like you're on a mission. I have my notebook, right? Or my iPad or whatever you're doing. And I'm not just standing on the side of the road, like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing or how I'm doing it. No, I'm on a mission, right? I'm walking like I'm on a mission. I'm making stuff happen, and I'm doing this. Your vocabulary is very specific too. If you're on the doors and you're saying something like, and you'll catch yourself, you should record your first day on the doors, your first, second day on the doors, whatever, you should record yourself, because weird things start happening. You tweak your pitch and it's stupid. And you go, why isn't nobody answering the door for me? Or nobody's letting me speak longer than, 30 seconds or whatever before they slam the door. No, thank you. And it's because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Like the pitch works. So the key, right, is to make sure that people understand why the heck you're there, first off. And that's usually the most common thing that happens, is you start talking and then nobody knows why you're actually there. So because they don't know why you're actually on the doorstep, they go, okay, cool, thanks. And that's the number one reason why they slam the door. They actually don't know what you're doing. And so really fast out the gate, you're going to need to explain to them why you're on the doorstep. And there's that actual process. I haven't thought about this in at least a year. That's terrible. So the first things first is you're going to break preoccupation. That's what it's called. So you're going to do something that disrupts what they're doing inside. Remember, we talked about that. So if you're, if they're cooking dinner, or they're on the phone, or they're handling homework, or whatever they're doing, and you knock on the door, it's like, right? Everyone does it. Oh, door knocker, right? You go to the door and they go, yeah, how can I help you? Or whatever it is, right? It's like, oh, hey, sorry to bother you. Are you a homeowner by chance? And then they might say, no, I'm a renter, just to try and get rid of you. Or they'll say, yeah, why? Right? Like, hey, I'm looking for Debbie and Joanna. And you actually can know every single person's name on that street if you just get a title record. Like you can actually know everybody's name if you wanted to. And that really throws them off guard. They're like, how do you know my name? Who are you? I'm like, oh, wow, great news. And then that's the break preoccupation. You don't even have to explain why you, honestly, you don't even have to explain why you know their name, other than just simply, I pulled tax data. I need to know everything about this neighborhood I possibly can. That's my job. I'm an investor. I know everything there is about this neighborhood. You're welcome. Right? Like I'm raising values. I'm doing all sorts of great stuff for your neighborhood. And some people will be freaked out by that. And that's great. It's fine. Let them be freaked out. Because then your job is to calm them down and show them why you should know this information. Or how you even got it. They can get it too. It's not a big deal, right? It's free. It's public record. But another thing, and a little easier and doesn't make people so freaked out, is complimenting them. So it could be their shoes. Maybe they're wearing some cool kicks and you're like, oh my gosh, I love your shoes, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, thank you. And everyone loves a compliment. They just do. Like people, it'll stop what they're doing. It'll force them to re-engage with you. And now you can keep speaking. And it's called a break your occupation because it's just breaking whatever they're doing. They're occupied by doing something else, and you're breaking that, what they're thinking about and making them think about whatever the heck you're thinking about or what you want them to think about. You can compliment their yard. So I found for me, whether it's their clothing, I'm always about their shoes or like what they're wearing maybe, or their yard. That was kind of my go-to. And I felt like for most of my people that we've door knocked together, that's been like the most successful, at least in this summertime. Winter doesn't really work because everything looks dead and gross. But the summertime or spring, it's like, oh, it's easy to compliment. It's like, oh my gosh, is this your, like, do you take care of this yard? And they'll be like, yeah, why? Like, it's so beautiful. Did you design the landscaping on this? Well, yeah. It's like, and then this is great. Walk over to a bush, walk over to some type of plant, be like, what type of plant is this? This is so pretty. They'll walk out of their door, go to you to a plant, be like, oh, that's a da 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 da. Now, guess what? You are instant kindred sisters. Like, you are instantly best friends. And they will talk to you about a stupid flower for however long you need to. I promise. And now, once you've had them engage and like go, oh, okay, this, and then this will happen to them, be like, so what are you doing here? Oh yeah, sorry, I got so like this flower. It's so pretty. Your yard is just so great. Yeah, I'm actually looking to buy a house in this neighborhood, so I'm knocking on your door. That's great. That forces people to go, okay, like, why are you here? Perfect. I want you to ask me that, right? And if you're not going to, I'm going to do it anyway, right? I'm going to tell them why I'm there. But that is the next step. So they need to know, you need to break whatever they're doing to make them actually listen to you, because chances are they're not going to. If you just start, you knock on the door and then I say, hi, how can I help you? You go, la, 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 I'm here to my house. I'm like, whoa, right? And slam the door. And I can't say that I haven't done that because, of course, I vomited on the doors before, right? Or I've knocked on the door and been like, I forgot what I was supposed to say. Done that before, right? And that's okay. All of it's fine. Burn 100 doors. If you go door knocking and you don't hit 100 doors, and then you come back to me and you go, oh, maybe I didn't get a deal, blah, 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 and you haven't knocked 100 doors, I'm going to tell you to go knock 100 more doors, or at least hit 100 doors. It takes time to get your mouth and your thoughts and their reactions and what you're doing in the situation, and then the perfect kind of combo of them actually being able to listen, and maybe they're not doing a million other things. It takes time for that to happen. So if you haven't knocked 100 doors, you're probably not going to get a deal. Now, once you get better at this, you could probably knock 25 deals and get a deal. Yeah. My first deals, what was interesting is I did this whole strategy to try and figure it out, right? Because nobody taught me how to knock doors for real estate investing. And, but I was like, if I can do it there, I can do it here, right? It's all the same, right? People are people, sales is sales. And so I did not do the cauliflower effect, but you know what? We ended up buying or putting 2 homes under contract that were not on the NOD list that actually were in default. We put 2 homes under contract that weren't on the list. They were nowhere to be found. I even went back through and I'm like, how old is this? My records, like what's going on? Sure enough, 2 of the homes that we were knocking with, I wish Jared Brinson was on the line, because these 2 deals we put under contract as like actual wholesale deals, and we made like $4,000 on one and like $5,000 on the other one, and it was great. And these 2 people on the same street, there was one over here and one over here, they were not on the NOD list. And had I not knocked those doors just to do the cauliflower thing, I would never even know, because they weren't anywhere on my list. So that just also shows you that always never have your guard down, right? Be ready to make a sale, be ready to have paperwork, right? If it's on your iPad, fine. Digital, fine, all day long. If you're a more tangible paper type person, and or maybe you know the neighborhood or you know the age of the people that you're about to go talk to, maybe tangible paperwork, having a Repsy in your hand in a little notebook, right? So you're walking around with your cute little notebook, totally fine. You're closing deals on the doorstep. Absolutely, you can. And it might be something you have to come back and negotiate later, right? But that's okay. Wouldn't you rather have something under contract and given them a number that maybe isn't super realistic because you're not an expert just yet about how to run numbers and what would actually make sense for a wholesaler to sell, or that a buyer would actually buy? Maybe you're not an expert yet, but can you cancel that contract? Absolutely you can. can you go back to the negotiating table with maybe me and go, all right, so my mentor told me that unfortunately I got the numbers wrong. These are actually where we're at. Are they going to be mad at you for trying your hardest? Maybe, but does it matter? I mean, you have to do those hard things to get people to get, to get what you want. You have to be willing to do those hard things. And so be willing to be uncomfortable, being willing to get outside of your comfort zone. And if you are scared of going inside of people's houses, bring someone with you, right? Maybe if you're like, oh, I got to bring a guy with me, or my husband, or my, my fiance, or my boyfriend, or a friend. Maybe it's one of our, colleagues here. They're like, hey, yeah. And that's what we created with Man Communities. It was really fun. We'd have teams, and then we had a team lead, and then they would go and be like, okay, like I'll go door knocking with you for 2 hours. And then they'd go door knocking, and they just kind of do that. And that worked out really well. So if we are excited about doing, I got a bunch of yeses, and there's a lot more people on the line now. So if you are excited about maybe putting together just like a scenario where you're like, oh yeah, I would love to go do like a blitz day where we go door knocking for a day, maybe 2 days. Let me know. I would love to put it in the chat. Yes. If you're like, I'm good, that's not my jam, that's totally fine. We can make phone calls. We can do, a whole different script on that. It's definitely different, but it totally works. And all of it works, again, as Mitch always says, all of it works, nothing doesn't. I love that strategy. I will, live by that. Yes, okay, Sasha, yes, let's go. I love it. And then, okay, so Caitlin England said, I hate rejection. Ooh, well, so back to what Charlotte said, you should probably read the book, Go for No. That would really help you with that rejection, because you're not wrong, right? As humans, we don't want to be rejected. Our livelihood is not to feel rejection, right? This goes back to ancient, before we were even humans, right? Like our genealogy says that we have to fit in. And if we don't fit in, then we get kicked out of the crowd or the tribe, and then you die. That's what that means, right? If you fit in, you're being rejected for any reason, then you die. That's why we have such a fear of rejection as humans. That is why, because we didn't survive unless we were a part of a tribe, unless we were part of, a group that loved us, and we were all taking care of each other. And so that's why we have this like sense of like, oh, we have to please everyone, and we can't have rejection. I'm a Virgo. I also hate confrontation. Truthfully, I do. I don't like it. And in most things, like in my family, or there's most things, I pick my battles, right? And unfortunately, I just kind of go, whatever. I'd rather not fight about it, or I'd rather just let it go, because it's not worth my time, right? It's not worth my energy. There's a few things I will fight, and I will fight till I die, which is my kids. When we start messing with my kids, I will lose my mind. You don't want to mess with me if you mess with my kids. And that's just like, I have a radar where I was like, right, like, oh, and now you pissed me off, and you don't want to do that. But confrontation will happen, and you're gonna have to be okay with that. And that's why that Go for No book is so powerful, because it's just a number. Because it's going to teach you that, like I said, 100 doors. Your job isn't to get 100 yeses. It's not to get 100 no's. It's not to get anything. It's just to knock 100 doors. So if somebody goes, I don't want to do this, is it offending? Should it offend you if somebody says, I don't want to do this, or the numbers don't work for me? Should it actually offend you? The answer is no. It really shouldn't offend you, right? There would be no reason to feel like that's an attack at Maeli because they don't want to do a deal. The deal doesn't make sense to them. The deal doesn't make sense to them. The numbers don't work for them, right? That's okay. I'm so okay with that. And really repositioning the way you think about deals will really help you in that scenario. Because whether you're making phone calls and you're just smiling and dialing, same thing can happen, right? Rejection, at its finest, definitely smiling and dialing. I feel like it's way easier. I'm way better on the doors than I am on the phones, for sure. And that's just because I did it for so long, right? And I'm more of a belly-to-belly person. I like this Zoom thing. That's fun. That's great to see everybody, some people's faces and not, but I'm definitely more of, come say hi to me. Like, I want to hang out. Like, I want belly-to-belly interaction. And for sure, I can manipulate the situation better if I can see your emotions. And not necessarily even manipulate, but just understand maybe what you're feeling, right? Like, see the expression on your face when I bring up a number. You're like, oh my gosh, like that's not what I expected, right? Rather than over the phone, they're like, no, click or whatever, right? Like it's so much harder for me. Doesn't mean that you can't learn too. And there's plenty of experts that, Jared Branchley has actually gotten pretty good on the phones. So we could probably have him on here soon to do a call with that. I'm way better on the doors. And that's just because I like it more, right? I love the interaction. I love to tease around with people and have a good time. I make it a fun thing rather than like this sucks, right? Because rejection is going to happen. So get some thick skin. It's okay. You're going to get it. And it has nothing to do with you. So just go for the number, go for no. That's what the reason is. Go for it. Like it's better to get 100 no's and 1 yes than to get all no. I mean, than to never get anybody to say anything to you. Right? Oh, okay. So if I just, and you will know your number. That's the other cool thing about door knocking. If you do it more than a couple times, right? Like if you're like, oh, I'm going to go out every Saturday for, maybe a month or 2 months or 3 months and just make it your thing, right? Every Saturday for 3 hours, like I'm going to go out and do this. Well, if you do, it's really cool what happens because you'll start to get a number and you'll start to recognize the people that you are attracted to, the people that you get along with the most. You'll find out the people who you just resonate with and that you like talking to. So you get so good that you can knock on the door, have a little conversation, and then within seconds go, great, it was super nice to meet you. Maybe if you ever need a real estate agent or if you ever need somebody to sell your house, I'm here for you, and just walk away because you know you're not going anywhere with this person. I mean, there's plenty. I know my avatar, right? I know the people that are like, I'm not talking to you. Fine, don't talk to me. You know what my avatar is? Women. Out of all the houses that I have done deals with, I bet I've probably purchased a home or done a deal as far as solar or alarms with maybe 10 people that were men. That's interesting. And maybe that's the way to stay safe, right? If you're a woman. And this is why. So, don't kill the messenger here. I'm just telling you my stats. So I found that when I was on the doors, all the time, they'd be like, oh, well, my wife. Oh, well, my wife. Oh, my wife needs to look at this. That was their excuse. That was their out. And probably rightfully so. Of course, the wife needs to look at the numbers. Of course, the wife needs to be a part of this, right? Whatever it might be. But nevertheless, it would happen every time, right? Like, oh, my wife. Oh, it's like, perfect. If you run into something, this is a huge, this should be your takeaway. If you run into something that keeps happening when you're on the phones or you're knocking doors, if you keep hitting a roadblock where that is their objection and you can't get past it, that's an objection you can't get past. My wife's not here. I can't make a decision. Right? Dang it. Now I have to leave. I have to come all the way. Maybe you'll never call me. And that sucks. Okay. So your deal is probably 80% done if you leave the house and they don't sign a contract. They might not ever sign that contract, right? So if you can make it so that their wife is home and you're doing the deal with the wife as well, men, if you're a man or a female, this works because it eliminates that excuse. So same thing on the husband side. But if you can structure it, I always say, unfortunately, the wife usually makes the decisions and a happy wife is a happy life. So if the wife was home and the husband wasn't, I could say, well, do you make the financial decisions? Well, I make most of them. Okay. Do you make, like, if you saw a good deal today and you like, oh yeah, I would love to sell my house and this is the number that I'd sell it at, could you make that decision? If they say, no, I think I would want to talk to my husband. I'd be like, perfect. When will we be home? Right? And vice versa. I would never, if the husband's like, oh yeah, my wife doesn't, actually, if it's a husband that's home and the wife isn't home, I'll just say, hey, when does your wife, I don't even ask if they can make a decision with that, their wife. I just say, hey, when does your wife get home? I'd love to swing back by and say hi. And that's my go-to because you want to make sure that you're being in front of the most people that can make a decision. They can't say no immediately. And that's because what's the next excuse? So you have to bring up that objection first, right? Before you get too far, because now you're just wasting a ton of your time. What's another objection that comes up really fast into it? Oh, I'd sell for $1 million. Right? I don't know why they say that, but that's like a go-to thing that, oh yeah, of course I'd be willing to sell for like $1 million. Your house is worth maybe 4. So I don't know why you'd say that. Anyway, obviously you don't say that, but that's something they always say on the doors. And you go, oh, okay, well, great, cool. I would love to get you $1 million for your house. But if it was, but if we could get you a more realistic number, maybe throw out even an abnormal number like $600,000. would you still be open to it? And if they say yes, there's your in. Even if that was an obnoxious number too, like their house really is only worth 4 and you said 600,000, right? It's an in the door. It's an in the situation, because they're going to tell you whatever they can to get rid of you. That's their job. Like that's their first, right? They call it smoke screening, and people do. They will tell you all sorts of lies, and that's why you're a pest on the doorstep. They'll tell you all sorts of lies is on the doors. And it's crazy how bad people lie to you. Like, wow, that's intense how much you're lying to me. Because you might know their situation, right? Because you've talked to everybody in the neighborhood. So it's bad. And then you get inside the house and then the whole story changes, right? The whole thing changes. So making sure that you're recognizing that people have pattern interrupts and you have to break through those, and you have to be willing to get just no. You have to, and you have to be willing to be in uncomfortable sorts, which is maybe going inside of somebody's house. But back to that, if you feel uncomfortable, carry mace. They actually have a really cool pen that's out. A really good friend of mine at my new brokerage, he's getting this for me, so I don't have it yet, but I'm excited. But it's like a pen, and it has like a knife on the end, like a for real like knife, and then the other side has something else that's really cool. So I'm excited. He's hooking me up with one of those. But because I always carry a pen with me no matter where I go, so I can, if I need to. I haven't really had to, but being safe, right? You do need to be safe out there on the doors, and I don't want you to feel right. Your safety is more important than knocking a door. It just is. So don't put yourself in a bad situation. But if you have confidence and you have purpose and you're on a mission, you're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. If a tall, blonde, blue-eyed girl could be walking through these crazy streets and not have an issue, you're fine. You're just fine. And it's just know what you're doing, right? But if not, partner up with somebody. There's plenty of us on this group here that would love to, I'm sure, partner up and like, let's go do some door knocking together. But we are kind of getting to the time where we're supposed to wrap up. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to actually give you guys, let's see, what is that? Flipping with Mitch Maeli. I'll pretend like this is it. All right, can you see my screen? Yes, cool. Thanks, Faye. You're always my guy. Tell me. We did this. I would love to do this again. It's a 90-day challenge. I'm not going to launch it today because I want to get some feedback and I want to hear a little bit about this. Mitch is like, no, people aren't going to do that. I'm like, we should do this. We need to create excitement. We need to create a challenge for ourselves, but then also to hit our goals. And if we hit our goals, so what we did last time was we took anybody that wanted to join, right? We're like, hey, it's $200 to, or whatever it was, like $150 or $200 to be a part of this challenge. Okay. And then we said, if at the end of the challenge, you hit your goals, you hit your, you made it through the challenge, right? And there's different marks and stuff like that through the challenge. But if you make it through the challenge at the end of the 90 days, then instead of, obviously, we're just keeping that $200 in the pot, then we take that $200 that all of us, and then go do something really fun. One group, I didn't make it because I can't remember, I must have been sick or something. But went skydiving. That was super fun. And everybody went and we made a full day of that. One year we did like an escape thing, right? And put this whole obstacle course together for our rope course thing. That was really cool. So there's a lot of really fun things that we could put that money towards, if you will. Or if, and this is why it was a challenge, because if you forfeit if you don't make it through it and you don't do the checkoffs, then you don't get your money back. And luckily most people, and we're obviously good sports and, right. But if sometimes when there's money on the line, you're willing just to win, right? Or just to prove to yourself that you can do something that's really hard. Sometimes that pushes you over that hump if that's what you're missing right now in your business. So let me know. I'm just throwing that there as a challenge. If that's something would be interested in, I would like to, if we're going to do the challenge, I would like to start maybe at the first or maybe mid-June, just because school's all out and people are maybe getting a little bit more settled into summer. The nice thing is you can be anywhere and do this, so it's not like it's something that you're like, oh no, I can't do this because I'm traveling or whatever. It's like, no, you can do this from anywhere, right? Well, it can be phone calls, it can be door knocking, it can be however you're making your touches to make your 90-day challenge work. So I'm going to copy this. Actually, I'm going to everyone. Let's see, what's the best way to share this with everybody? Let's do this. Let's copy the link. Let's see, restricted, only people with access can open this link. Only people with access, is that right? How do you, anyone with the link? Okay, let's do that. We'll copy the link again. Okay, now I'll put it into the chat for y'all. Let's get creative on how we do this. Okay, so now everyone go download this bad boy. I'm sure there's typos. I revamped this, but it was late at night last night. So please, there's typos, fix them. Good for you. Do that. I'm sure there's plenty. So what you say and when you say it, there is a science behind it. I want you to give you a script that I have used. It's worked really well. I'll give you some science behind the sign thing. You don't have to use the sign. I found that the sign just allows people to stop thinking about the sale of the house. It makes them stop thinking about anything that they've got going on, but it makes them think about a sign or something as silly as a sign. And so it can be anything you bring up, right? Like, so it doesn't have to be the sign approach, but this is just one, strategy that you can use. I also will give you a strategy that I don't have on here, but I will type up and do it again and get it out to you guys. But if you can knock around already existing fix and flips, you're going to have a ton of success. So if you're like, hey, Maeli, I want to go knock doors and you want a list of our fix and flips, you got it, right? Or this is a great opportunity to network and socialize, find out from the group that you're in, like our Utah Ren, for instance, if Women's Real Estate Investing Network, if there's a bunch of ladies doing deals, reach out to them and be like, hey, can I get the address of your fix and flip or whatever, so I can go knock doors around it? You're gonna have a ton more success, I found, because they can see next door that it's something being rehabbed. It's even better if it's been listed, right? Because not only can you be inviting people to the listing and be like, hey, you got to come check out this, fix and flip that we just did. That's awesome, right? People love that. Now you're promoting the property. I love that. So you can do that anytime you want. And if you find a buyer, I'll hook you up. But neighbors love to sell their neighbors that home, right? Because they want to pick who their neighbors are. And so that was always my pitch too. Like, hey, you want to pick who your neighbor is. So I'm giving you the opportunity to pick who your neighbor is. Come check this out, right? We can do meetings there, even at the property. So if you're like feeling stressed, you're like, I don't know how to close this deal, you could legit be like, hey, come check this house out, very indirect. And then that's when we can even talk about buying their home, right? If we need to. If you don't want to go inside their house, we can bring them into our home and close deals that way. There is a reason for saying what I say, so read through all of that. D2D basics, so just there's so many rules around door-to-door basics, but there's a lot of tips in here, and read through them, right? They've been tried and true, and I've played with this script, and I've played with all of these things multiple times. But I do love how you say something is everything, right? How you do anything is everything. So oftentimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I kind of pivoted earlier when I said that. The more confident and relaxed you are, the better. Real estate is relationship business. So don't stress. You may think, or you may click with people, and other people you might just not click with at all, right? That's just part of the business. And that's okay. You're not going to get along with every single person you talk to. Okay. There's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of opportunity. Have an abundance mindset, because there's enough business to go around. And the last thing I want anyone thinking on this call is, oh, well, if, I can't go knock the neighborhood if, I heard this all the time. Well, so-and-so had that neighborhood last week. There's no way I could go knock that neighborhood now. They already knocked that neighborhood last week. And I'd laugh so hard and be like, that's so funny. Because my experience has been, I could knock a neighborhood legit. The following week, go knock that same neighborhood, and they wouldn't even remember who I am. No clue. Like, you remember me? I'm so offended. Nope, no idea, right? If they were distracted and if the person that knocked before you didn't close business, great. That means that one, they didn't do, unfortunately, a great job. Two, it means that they just didn't connect with those people. Maybe they're brand new, maybe it was, whatever. And so they were not very memorable and they didn't close enough business for them to even remember them. So if you go out the next week and are doing the exact same thing, but a little differently in your style and your jam, then that's a whole different story. And you're going to resonate with totally different people. People are going to open the doors up to a different, and I will say as a woman, you have an unfair advantage. I will give you that little bit of a tip because anyone will open the door to you. Whereas, if you're a mom and you're home and you got kids, maybe, right? It's summertime and you got kids, you might not open the door to somebody knocking on your, like, you might not open the door and you might just let it go. But if I knocked on your door and I'm like, the door, you'd probably open the door and be like, what the heck are you doing? Like, what do you want? And so, I always looked at it like I had an advantage rather than this disadvantage that I'm a woman and I can't protect myself. I looked at it as, oh no, like everyone's going to open the door to me. Yes. Right. And knocking as a couple, like if you are a husband and wife, that's a great idea because then the story is realistic when you're like, hey, my husband and I are looking to buy a home in this neighborhood. That's so realistic. You're not lying. You're not doing anything like that, right? Hey, we're actually looking to buy a home in this neighborhood. Can you tell me anything about it? Right. Those are all really good like strategies and they work. They really do. And people will be like, wow, you want to move in this neighborhood? Why? It's like, yeah, can you think of a reason why I wouldn't? And sometimes they'll tell you, oh, well, in my neighborhood, the jets fly over every 2 hours. I swear the jets just nonstop flying over Hill Air Force Base, right? Super annoying. Yeah, but the kid, and they'll tell you all the great things of living in Layton. And there are a lot of really great things, but that is the downside, and so maybe that would change your decision on wanting to buy it. Who knows? Okay, being positive, it is a mind game. So knocking doors, you got to be mentally strong. Call me if you're about to cry. It's fine. I got you. People can be mean, but this would be the challenge. So week 1, right? And then what you do is you say, if you're going to do ads, fine. So like I said, you can do this from anywhere. It doesn't have to be door knocking, right? New leads, however you're getting them, calls I've made, doors I've knocked, the letters I've sent, the walkthroughs that I've done, the repsies that I've delivered, and the properties under contract. And you set your goal for the week, and then you tally them up throughout the entire week. And then the key here is to hit your goals, right? So whatever that is, if your goals are, right, that I'm going to have 20, ads placed, perfect. It could be KSA ads, guys. This doesn't have to be, you don't have to be spending money to do this. This is very simple stuff. So how many new leads do you want by simply knocking doors or making phone calls or whatever? Maybe you are just going to Instagram and simply just reaching out to people and talking to them and letting them know what you do and how you do things and how if they have anybody that's in a distress situation, divorce, probate, meth, mold, radon situation, that maybe they're behind, they're being pre-foreclosure. If you know anyone that's in a situation like that, please reach out to me. Like, I want to be their angel. I want to be able to help these people. This is what I do. You can send them maybe some testimonials, whatever, that we can help you out with that. So those are the key indicators, right? Those are the things that you need to be focusing on every single week. If you just focused in your business on just this, how much of these things have I done? And then actually looked at what you've done to create those leads. This is where we get stuck on our businesses. And this is super, super, super important. So I hope you're paying attention here. We get so stuck on going, well, I don't have this property under contract. I don't have this one property under contract. I don't have this one property under contract. That's not helping your business, unfortunately. You got to do all the key indicators because that one property could go away bye-bye very fast. You need to have a pipeline. You need to be able to serve your pipeline. You need to be able to follow up with your pipeline, right? And that's why it's a 90-day challenge, because it's like, oh, okay, now I can keep track of the houses that I've knocked, the numbers, right? Their phone number, if I get their phone number, which people will. I love to get the bishop's phone number. I love to get the release a site president's number in the neighborhood. If you're not LDS, you're not from around here, there's one in every neighborhood. I don't care where you live. And it's fantastic because whether or not they're a part of the religion, like maybe you're not, a part of the LDS religion, that's totally fine. If it's their neighborhood, it's like their church, right? And that's their neighborhood, their territory that they're in charge of. their job is to serve the entire neighborhood, not just the members of the community. It's the actual entire neighborhood. So they know if there's divorce in the neighborhood. They know if there's some type of distress, if people aren't paying their bills. They know if they're behind. They know if they're going to the Bishop storehouse and trying to get food because they don't have enough money. They know if their husband's not paying child support. They know, I mean, they know all the details. And if you're coming from a very loving and caring and trustworthy position, and you're saying to them, listen, we can help each other. We can. I can help you help them. And this is how I do it. This is my team. This is what we do. You're going to be so successful because now people, this is the key, get people to work for you. There's the real ticket, right? Once you've knocked enough doors, you can actually get people to do it for you, right? I have people on corners still that are there that I tell them that I'll pay them a nice referral check if they send me a lead, and I'll get leads randomly all the time still. And I haven't knocked doors since last summer, right? And so how great to be able to get a lead from maybe a neighbor. And so like in my neighborhood, I have a mailbox, like a community mailbox, right? And I chose that neighbor. I'm like, okay, we're together here. Like we're in this, you're going to help me. And I'm going to pay you $500 for every referral that you send me if they go under contract with me. $500? Absolutely. Okay, so if you hear of anybody in the entire neighborhood, maybe HOA presidents, that's a really good person to get in with. Maybe the police officer, maybe the fireman, whatever. Anybody that has authority in a neighborhood, get in with them, right? And be really good friends with them and be like, I will give you X amount of money if I go under contract with these, because I value your time and we're in this together, right? So if anybody's talking about selling their house, I want to know about it, right? I want to know about it. If anybody's even thinking about selling their house, I want to know about it. Give me the opportunity, please. You know I'm going to do a good job, right? Like build that relationship, build that rapport, and people will love you for it because you're really helping them and you're helping them help their neighborhood. So anyway, there's the 30-day challenge. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. Ooh. So every week, obviously, I have a fun quote that you get a look at and be like, oh, remember, money will always match your mindset. Ooh, I love that too. So there's always a little motivating quote to kind of keep you, pushing forward. Stay away from negative people. They have a problem for every solution. Oh, yes, they do. Right. And it is toxic. Okay. That is all I have. There's so much here that I didn't get into. But I did copy this if anybody wants to, even if you're like, oh, I don't want to do necessarily the challenge, but I could use at least these key indicators to keep track of my goals. I do want to be your accountability partner. Like that's what I like doing. That's, what I've been for a long time now is our team's accountability partner. So I know Sasha just recently joined our team, by the way. Everybody give her a round of applause. Yes, Sasha, love you. April just joined. I don't know if she's on this call. I haven't looked through all of our people that are on here. And then a couple other people that just joined too. So I'm super happy for everybody that just hopped in. But so because you're just getting going, right? And I love that Sasha shared with me all of her goals just recently, right? I'm like, yeah, Sasha, get to it. Like, let's do it. I want to hold you to those. So if that's something that you're like, what, I need somebody to kick me in the butt. I need somebody to hold me a little bit more, on point to my goals. I'm that person for you. So please reach out. I will, make you suffer. No, not to buy me lunch if you don't hit your goals. No, I don't know. We'll come up with something fun. All right. That is all I have. Does anyone have, oh yeah, Mahaya just joined our group too. Yay, Mahaya. Yes. And Charles, that's right. Okay. Ron and I are excited to be here. Ron, God, thank you. I love you. And yes, Ron, sorry, not Charles. And can I go by two different names? Thank you, Ron, for being here and being a part of our team. And you guys are going to be amazing. And definitely door knocking together will be so fun for you guys. Like if you ever wanted to do that, I'd love to show you how. Okay, any other questions before we wrap up this call tonight? Was this helpful? I mean, did you learn something? Are you excited to go try it? Door knocking at least? Did I inspire you to be like, fine, I'll go knock a door? Yeah, maybe? Maybe not. It's not for everyone. I even made, oh, good, Bill. I'm glad got some good stuff here. Good, yay, Angie. Angie, we definitely need to go out together and make some magic happen. Because you've been crushing the phone calls, right? Like you've been doing that. So let's get you to that next step and get some door knocking in maybe. I knew you'd be really powerful on the doors. Yes. Let's see, we want to try it out, but need a buddy to knock with. Yep. Yeah, Vanya, that's normal, right? When you first get started, it is helpful to have a buddy. So, like I said, if since I got a bunch of yeses saying that you'd like to do like a blitz day where we kind of just all go meet in a neighborhood and like we all go knock together, I will set that up. I'll create a time. Usually I suggest like a Saturday only because most people are home, not everyone, but there are a lot of people home, and then you usually have that day off too, like if you have a traditional job. So I will try and set it up for like an afternoon or a morning, do like a 2-3 hour blitz, and then we'll get to it there. Philip, and we need to clear a day. Oh my God, yes, let's clear a day. I'll make it far enough out that people can plan for this. I'm not going to try and just do it next weekend, but that we won't do that. But at least we got a bunch of people that are excited at least to go try it. And I do have some experienced door knockers on our team that have done this with me from our last days. I mean, Jordan Youd, I think you're on here, and I think you used to knock with me. So you could be, maybe a team member, captain, and you could help other people. I know I have David Cokerhans, he's crushing it. And then Jared Brenchley, he would come help. Yeah, Jordan. Okay, cool. He'd come help. And Sarah, I mean, we have some fantastic people that have had quite a bit of experience doing this from, just the years of us doing this. So we'll pull those people in as well. That way we have multiple people that can kind of help teach and train, and so that you don't feel so overwhelmed when you're on the doors like, ah! But we'll watch you freak out because that's the fun part. Knock, 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 freeze. I don't remember what I was going to say. Anyway, I can't wait. With that, I'm going to say good night. I love you all so much. Thank you for being here. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay safe. Go out and make some money and do what feels good. Like serve yourself today and this whole week. Like I want you to recognize that your time is very valuable and that you need to do what's best for you, your business, and for your life and for your well-being. So with that, I love you. Have a great evening. I'll see you on the flip side. Bye, guys.